We're sideways on the thing.
Ask the people how we look.
No, I don't know why it's only doing it on this phone. Well, because it's where the words are. So, hey everybody, what's up?
All right, I'm gonna go live on IG, get in frame over here. Set us up first this time.
Yep, all right.
And then I'll go live.
All right, so apparently it's this phone that is having the problem, not this one. Because I used this one the last couple of times and it was fine on the side.
Oh.
So something about that phone, I might need to reinstall YouTube or something like that. What's going on, everybody? Are we actually on time? No, we're late. We're late. I keep forgetting that clock is broken.
Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday.
What's going on, folks? First chat of the month means it is question and answer time. Q&A day.
Guess what?
What?
I am over the flu.
She's over. We weren't going to be on. I told everybody last week that it was going to be 3 weeks before we came back.
I know, because I was supposed to be traveling right now.
Yeah.
And I canceled my trip because I had the flu last week.
No, that's not why.
It is why.
No, it's not. It's not why you canceled your trip.
Why? Why did I cancel my trip?
Because you didn't want to leave me. You've been telling me every day, I'm so glad I'm here and I didn't leave.
I didn't want to leave him. That is true. We literally had just gotten back from Arizona.
Yep.
And I went to the gym, and I think I got the flu at the gym because it was nasty.
You said it was nasty, hot and sweaty.
It was hot,
and humid.
sweaty, a ton of people everywhere. I went at the worst time, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. On one of the first warm days of the year, and Gold's Gym, it feels like a garage gym.
Yeah, it does.
When it is hot and humid outside, it is hot and humid in that gym. It doesn't matter what they do with the AC. So it was, I came back saying how disgusting it was in there. And then it was 2 days later, I had all the symptoms, and then went ahead and got tested because I wanted to see if I could rule out or get antivirals or something if it were COVID or the flu, and turns out it was the flu. I haven't had the flu.
Or COVID, same thing.
Well, the COVID test was negative. The flu test B was positive. So I'm going with the flu.
I'm just trying to start shit.
I know. You're such a shit starter.
I'm not a pot stirrer.
I cannot remember the last time I had the flu. Seriously, I don't know what year it was in my life the last time I had the flu, and I haven't gotten.
Didn't we just have some? Well, we didn't get tested though, so you don't know if it was the flu. Like last month when I was sick.
Right, but that was mild.
Yeah, compared to what you had this time.
Yeah, that was like head cold. That never went beyond head cold for me.
Yeah.
For you, it was a little worse. Yeah.
I think you just got it delayed. You had what I had it, then it took like a month for you to get it.
Yeah, but it doesn't really work that way. But that also was, I got sick, and then I think I gave it to you, but you had it worse because I came back from the Arnold sick.
Oh, that's right, you did. Yep, you're right.
So it's been a rough
weeks.
March, I suppose. Yeah. But now I'm saying it is now Q2, second quarter of the year. Spring, new season. I'm calling wellness for the rest of the year.
Wellness for the rest of the year. That works for me.
And not just wellness, optimized wellness.
Ooh. For you and your business.
Yes.
You did a big thing the other day.
I did a very big thing the other day.
She's going to get her whole website redone.
I'm doing a complete overhaul of my website.
But it's not just the website, it's what that means.
Right.
Right, the website, how it connects into how you do your business processes. And
this is going to be the gateway. I had a project list of things to be done for the business this year to scale, to grow, to develop, to improve all of our processes, to improve our client satisfaction, to
customer experience.
Yes,
right, your client
everything. So this is kind of kicking off all of that because it's the underpinning. It's creating a shift in me as the business owner that I feel that this is opening up and unlocking so many possibilities.
I mean, guys, everything is everything, right? We talk about this, when we talk about nutrition and fitness and mindset and lifestyle and all of these different things, the same principles apply in business and finance and relationships. You are doing the things that someone at the next level in their business is does, right?
Yes.
So, okay, if I want to get to the next level, what are the people that are at the level I'm trying to get to? What do they do?
doing?
How do they have their things set up? What is working for them? Those are the things I need to be doing. And
success leaves clues.
right. So having that and making those changes, that's where you're at. So you can get there too.
So I'm excited for those of you who are already a part of the Academy. Just know where my mind is going. Everything. I'm aiming to knock your socks off over the next 3, 4, 6 months.
Yeah.
And then take it to the next level from there. So just everything's going to be improved. Same thing on the health side of things, physical, personal health.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I'm beginning my HRT journey, hormone replacement, starting with testosterone, which is something that has been on my mind for a long time. My testosterone has been low for a long time. We have tried.
It's not like I haven't tried giving you any.
We have tried everything, literally. Aside from actually taking exogenous testosterone. So that is the next step on my journey. I'm going with the cream, the testosterone cream. Getting one more round of blood work first to establish what are all of my androgen levels, testosterone, DHT, SHBG, all of these markers before we dive in. And then assuming everything looks good and everything looks the way it's been looking, then I'll be diving in. So I'll be sharing that on my YouTube. I'll share my journey on Instagram so you all can learn from my experience.
And for any guys listening, this is something, and this is, I mean, sure it works for women as well, but mostly for guys from a testosterone perspective, since we're talking about that. When was that? Was that where was that it? That wasn't the cruise last year. Was Jonathan Shane on the cruise last year? Mm-hmm. Was that where he told me about boron, or was that another event?
Oh, possibly. You didn't know about boron before that?
Not for testosterone.
Really?
Yeah, specifically.
It's one of the main.
I don't remember. Anyways, shout out to Jonathan Shane, the Keto Road on Instagram. Several months ago, sometime last year, we had a conversation. I was talking about really trying to work on getting my testosterone up and thinking about TRT or HRT or something like that. And he asked if I was supplementing boron. So we talked about that for a little bit and I decided to give it a shot. So I don't know, it's probably been at least 6 or 8 months that I've been doing it. And I've been doing 9 milligrams of boron a day. And my testosterone went from mid-range.
I was going to say, it was never low.
It was never low, but it wasn't optimal where I'd like to see it more in the higher end of the range, right? I went from mid-range of the recommended ranges. So, okay, so there's the recommended
we were just
range.
Talking about the different ranges.
Right.
Even different labs
have different numbers.
Have different ranges that they use.
So there's the range of normal or acceptable. So there's the low range and the high range of that. And then there's the high range overall, and then there's low range, right? So I was in the middle of all of it, right? Smack dab in the middle of normal. I am now, after 6 or 8 months of taking boron, I am above average range. I'm above the normal range. I'm in the high range.
And was that for
free testosterone?
I was going to say free.
So that's total? Not even total. My total actually went down a little bit.
Interesting.
But my free doubled.
But your total, what level was that at in the range?
That's mid to high range. So I had the testosterone overall wasn't the issue. It was the free. It was the body's ability to access what was there that was struggling. So the boron, my SHBG went down. which is what let that
right.
go, right? So the
Right.
SHBG went down, freeing up the testosterone. The free testosterone is now floating around going, let's go.
For those that don't know, SHBG is sex hormone binding globulin. It's what your sex hormones bind to. And so if they're bound, they are not freely available. And so a lot of the time, if you're seeing low free T, it's likely that your SHBG is high.
There you go. You can put your foot up on the table now.
Thank you. I couldn't reach the table, y'all. Hey, Debbie.
Short
Purple
legs.
Nona is on.
Short legs. So,
Yeah, so
that's cool. So you're going to get some stuff done. I started taking boron.
You know what we should tell them about was what we learned about the labs. You were like, why is my lab value different?
So specifically, we didn't go into all of the different ones, but I've used in the past several years. I've done a lot of lab tests, but this recently, and if this is something I haven't even talked. I don't know why I haven't talked about this. Who was it? Who did it? Who is it that started this thing? I can't remember who's the guy behind the whole thing.
Oh, Fountain Health.
Yeah, Function.
It's a Function. It's Dr. Hyman.
Hyman, thank you.
Yeah.
So Dr. Hyman, if you're familiar, is it Mark?
Mark Hyman.
Mark Hyman is, I don't know if he started it, but he's the name. He's the name, the celebrity name behind that's promoting it. Function Health. If you go check it out, guys, it is not necessarily an online doctor, right? It's not a medical provider, medical service provider, but what they do is it is online blood testing, and it is super comprehensive. They have all kinds of things, and it's fairly, very accessible cost-wise. So for an annual fee of $400 a year, $400 a year, I get 2 sets of complete blood works a year. So there's a whole basic set that they give you right up front, and then there's like 80% of that you go back at 6 months and you do it again. And every 6 months you just pay $400. So what I was doing is I was looking at On Your Labs or Ulta or these different places, adding up all the different things, and it was $300, $400, $500 for one set of tests that I'd have to do twice a year, right? It was like, holy crap. And then the cool thing about it is not only do they track it all for you, but they actually have a doctor review your labs and then send you a summary with interpretation of what they could mean and things that you need to do or could work on, right? So it's super cool. I highly recommend.
Function, the name, right? It's functional health. So Dr. Hyman is a functional health practitioner. So what they work on is functional lab values. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be different than what you would the lab values or the ranges you would see from a traditional medical.
Right. And the different labs. So this is what we were talking about. We found out that
they do a more
different labs do different types of or versions of testing. Specifically, let's talk about testosterone because that's what I was looking at. So
this is what I wanted you to touch on was this interesting tidbit we learned.
So there's a difference specifically with free testosterone testing. There is calculated free testosterone or direct free testosterone. And we found out that even though direct free testosterone blood test sounds more accurate because it's directly measuring, it's not. They are actually measuring an analog, which means another substance, not testosterone, and then estimating what your testosterone is based off of the quantity of that substance. So even though it's called direct, it's not direct. And it is less accurate and isn't necessarily a true representation because it doesn't take into effect some of the other SHBG, and some of the other aspects.
That's what the other one was.
Right. So calculated free testosterone is an equation, and it is also an estimate. It's an equation. Neither of them test actual free testosterone, but this one looks at that analog. It also looks at SHBG. It looks at how much free testosterone you have. There's a couple other. There were like 2 or 3. Albumin was. There's 2 or 3 other things it looks at and then says, okay, all of these things together means you should have, right? So it's just like any math problem. The more variables you can account for, the more accurate the reading is going to be or the answer is going to be. So calculated free testosterone is more preferred from an accuracy perspective if you're doing your testosterone testing.
And that was the one you got through Quest.
Quest. So LabCorp does direct, Quest does for calculated.
And what's interesting, so if you work with a company like Ulta Labs, if you order your labs from Ulta, Ulta's one where it gets very granular. So if you know what to request, then you can literally look for the exact lab you want to test.
Right.
For example, same thing with testosterone. I did a little reading
Thyroid.
from my doctors because this time I used my insurance and actually got labs through my insurance. And my total testosterone and my free testosterone have been pretty low for women. And there is a particular test that was recommended in the notes for women or for anyone who has very low free testosterone. That would be a more accurate measure when it's that low, because when it's that low, it's hard to get the correct or accurate measure beyond a certain level.
The accuracy drops.
And so there was a particular type of test. It was like LC. They have all these numbers, these letters and numbers that tell you what type of test it is. So, for example, on Ulta, I can go look up the exact test, that particular test, and I could order that one to get a better. So it's interesting because Quest, it seems like there's certain labs that they just naturally
they do by default. Yeah.
And same thing with LabCorp. With things like Ulta, you can actually ask for, if you know what to ask for, but a lot of the time you're not going to know, because the first time I ever worked with Ulta, I reached out to their customer service and I was asking them questions about labs, and they're like, we can't provide that information. We're not medical providers. You need to talk with your doctor.
Yeah.
And your doctor needs to order the lab. So even though it's a third-party lab and you can order your own, they don't provide medical information to you.
Which doesn't make any sense.
Which is
I just want to know what this test
You're
is.
selling these labs to directly to the public, and you cannot provide medical advice.
Yeah,
is
I'm
what
not
they're saying,
looking for advice. I just want to know what the difference
between
between the two
lab
labs
is. Exactly.
So, okay, so that's all that.
That was an interesting aside.
Okay, before we get into asking you guys if you have any questions, which hopefully if you have any questions about anything you've heard online, videos, other things people are saying, something we said that you didn't understand what we were talking about, please ask while we're talking. We'll put them in, drop your questions in. Yeah. I got two things I want to talk about.
Okay.
So first thing is Rebecca Bavery sent me, is it Bavery or Badvery?
I do not know.
I don't know how to pronounce her last name. So Rebecca Bavery is a fellow coach in the space. I think she's been a coach for Dr. Barry.
Yep.
And she told me the other day she just got hired on at Rivero.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah. So she's doing a lot of stuff. She's super busy.
Very cool.
But she published, and I found out this is a month. So she published a ketogenic workbook. It's on Amazon. Go check it out. And it's basically got information about what keto is. And then it's got like a weekly planner. So, planning, setting some goals, non-scale victory trackers, daily, weekly goals, planning, stuff like that. So something to check out for anybody who's looking at, hey, Coach Nat keeps saying I need a journal. You can use this to journal in or whatever. If you know someone who's just getting started and they're not sure how to track or what they need to be doing, this is a great thing to look at. So I wanted to let everybody know about that. I did say it's on Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, it's on Amazon. Go check it out. It's the Ketogenic Workbook, Planning for Success by Rebecca Bavery. Second thing, and this is a big thing. You know what this is?
What is this?
There's some changes coming, guys. There's some cool stuff happening.
What?
I started it yesterday.
Oh my gosh, how am I not?
I'm like, why are you
all you've
surprised?
been thinking about and talking about lately. Big things coming in his world as well. Okay, it's very exciting.
So without talking for an hour, about this whole thing. I'll just say, if you have been on my Facebook page, which if you haven't, you should, Coach Bronson, coach.bronson, just like on this YouTube channel. Go check it out. There's a link. I just started a GoFundMe. I have been in and out of doing things to support veterans for years. I'm a veteran. I did 17 years in the Army. There is a huge, huge, huge need for veterans in, let's just say, the lack of support that they're getting from the Veterans Administration, Veterans Administration health system, and just that whole process. I know there's people on here that are watching right now who are in the military, spouse of people in the military who are veterans. We're going to start doing some things to help those people. 8 million, and this is just some of the numbers that I was pulling up as I did some research for this. 8 million veterans right now have diabetes.
Wow.
More than that. That's like 25% of the veteran population.
I was going to ask the percentage.
30% of the veteran population has fatty liver. 600,000 have kidney disease.
Jeez.
The issues and the things that are happening with veterans that they're just not getting the support they need. They're not getting the information. They're not getting the attention. We were talking about this yesterday. Veterans are more incentivized to get disability than they are to get healthy. The system is rigged to make and keep veterans sick, and that is a problem. So what I'm doing is starting now. There's a GoFundMe. I want to raise enough money to send one person. We're going to pick one veteran. We'll get to that process. I haven't figured out how we're going to do that yet, but I want to make sure I've got the money first. I partner with Dr. Tro. If you guys are familiar with Dr. Tro, he's out of New York. He runs Toward Health. I got to figure out how to say that. I keep saying Toward. Toward Health, which is a virtual online metabolic rehabilitation, metabolic health service clinic. He's a doctor. He's got another, she's a doctor. She's an MD. And then a bunch of people that do coaching and nutrition, and they've got some fitness stuff. And he does a lot of stuff with corporate wellness. He's got a very, very successful system. They actually just recently published a study. I don't know if you saw that a couple months ago, where they tracked people over the 12-month process. That their program is a 12-month program. Guys, that is huge. They don't let you sign up if you don't commit to 12 months. And you all think a 12-week challenge is hard, right? So they have a 12-month program that they have shown. They have a peer-reviewed study, documented data, statistical analysis of the improvements in health, quality of life, savings, the sustainability of the changes that they're making, which, by the way, statistically is better than GLP-1s by doing it without medication.
They did.
The number of people, the amount of medications that were reduced and removed out of people's lives, all of this stuff. So
healthcare costs,
everything. So Coach Tro, Dr. Tro and I are partnering up, and we are going to promote this and try to see if we can raise money for one veteran to join his program. This is just the beginning. It's going to grow. I'm thinking about doing maybe every 6 months we'll do a round, see how this goes. Can we raise enough money? It's $3,500, guys. Go to the page. If you go to GoFundMe.com, I would just search veterans and Coach Bronson, and then the GoFundMe will come up, or just go to my Facebook page and there's a link there.
Put it in the description of the YouTube video.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the description on my YouTube, and I guess you can I'll comment on your.
I can put it in my link tree on my Instagram.
Oh, I should put it in my link tree. I didn't think about that. Duh.
Yeah.
Duh.
Put it everywhere.
Yeah. So we're just trying to raise $3,500. That's how much it costs for the whole 12 months. And it's going to change somebody's life. If we are successful with this one, maybe 6 months from now, we can say, hey, let's go for 5. Let's see if we can get 5 people into the program. And then if that goes well, let's see if we can get 10. Like, I want to build this up. And you know, you guys know I don't think small. So I've got grand visions of
grand ambition,
all this kind of stuff, where this can go and how big this can be, and where you know, I'm thinking, for those of any of you who are dealing with the VA or have dealt with the VA, you know someone who's dealing with the VA, particularly on the medical health side of things. Just think about what would happen. I got so excited about this. You said
I planted the seed, yes.
Just imagine if there was a, by the way, I'm thinking of calling this the Veterans Health Collective. By the way, that's what I'm thinking of calling this. So what? I like that. Just think about what if there was a Veterans Health Collective clinic right next to every regional Veterans Administration regional health center.
So you can walk out of the VA.
Go to the VA, do all the stuff that isn't helping you, and then go right across the street to a VHC office and get the help that you need. That'll be so freaking cool. So that's what I'm working on. I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to do some really cool things. And yeah, that's that. So go check it out. Please, please, please help out and participate.
Yes.
That's all.
It's a win-win-win.
It is. It is. Because Dr. Tro is doing such good things, guys. Well, that's a whole nother thing that we could get into, but he's doing so many good things with people and getting businesses to understand, right?
That not only is this initiative going to change someone's life and ultimately many people's lives, but it will also forward the kind of work that needs to be, we need to be supporting as well, right? And so it's supporting the work of people like Dr. Tro who are doing these kinds of things in the world to get people off their meds, to get them into
real
proper human diet,
real health, yes,
lifestyle change, habit change, all of the things, mindset change, the things we talk about all the time, because it's a 360-degree approach. So the fact that it would support that work while also providing that at no cost to someone who needs it, it's just, there's no downside.
I'll be honest with you. One of the things, this is one of those like unspoken, like in my gut, like, you know what would really be cool is if we could make it big enough to just put the VA out of business.
Yeah, right? Like, he doesn't think small, y'all. He does not think small. This is where his mind goes.
How can we not do something that we know works and just blow the old system, or say, look,
change the paradigm.
The system's there. Okay, great. You need to start doing it this way because this is working and what you're doing is not. And this goes into my work, the work that I was doing with Dr. Cucuzella, right? So Dr. Cucuzella was a VA doctor for a couple of years, almost 2 years. And he's worked with hundreds of people, not even doing an official program because he's in the VA system and he's not allowed to say, you should be keto, you should be carnivore, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. He can basically, all he can do is say, hey, here's a website you should check out. There's probably some good information there. Hey, here's some information you could look at, right? Go read this book. Like, all he can do is reference and refer to the patients that they go do some research on their own. He's not allowed to actually prescribe or recommend these things because it's against what the system does, right? Yep. So, but he's got
a long way to go.
He's got data of just from what he's been able to do within the system, just by sharing the information of what's possible.
Wow.
How much of an impact that's made.
Yep.
Right? So, yeah, guys, it's there's a lot of work to do, and I'm hoping you guys can join me along the way. So, we haven't gotten any questions.
I know. Well, you know, we really need to start talking about these before the day before.
2 days. Wait, was it Friday or it was yesterday?
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday morning. Oh, well.
So,
well, But everybody should know by now that the first one of every month is Q&A.
Well, we should just
No,
post it like a week before. We thought we weren't going to even be on this week. So.
Yeah, well, that's true. We didn't think we were even going to be on. And I told everybody that we weren't. So.
Yeah.
Oh, look, is that a hawk?
It looks like
Or
it.
an eagle?
Some kind of big bird.
Okay, so it's in the absence of any questions that people are asking, what is something that you've seen in either your group or other groups, because I know you're in all of the groups, that maybe there's been a trend or a theme, I know there has been in the group that I'm in, which is the group you added me to, thanks by the way, because that hasn't been fun.
That's not triggering at all.
Not at all. Oh gosh. And in that group particularly, every day it's the same conversation. Right? And just in case you're wondering, it's about carbs. Do you need carbs to build muscle or work out? And I don't understand how in a group that big, there's thousands of people in that group, how the same question can be asked every day and the same conversations every day, and someone doesn't just go, oh, we talked about this yesterday. Here's what everybody says. I don't understand that.
I've talked about it before, but that group was designed for that.
Well, there is that, yes.
Like it's literally
the group thrives on
purpose.
contention.
It was all yes, everything in that group is
built on
it's
arguing.
baiting. There's a lot of baiting. Because let's just talk about what it is. Why not? What the hell?
Carnivore bodybuilding.
Carnivore bodybuilding is the group we're talking about. And so when you hear carnivore bodybuilding, if you are a person looking for a group to join and you see carnivore bodybuilding, what are you going to think that group is for?
Yeah.
What would you think?
Carnivore bodybuilding.
And what do you think that would mean?
Eating meat and building muscle.
And eating only meat, right?
And that goes into what is the perception of the word carnivore. And because the perception is individual, and because of the ambiguity, it breeds argument. Because everybody's got a different interpretation of what carnivore means. So everybody's doing things differently. And then everybody's in the group doing things differently, talking and arguing over what they think carnivore is.
Right.
And why it works or doesn't work or what you need or don't need. And that's where
so the group itself is run by Rob Goodwin, who uses a carb cycling approach. Mm-hmm. If I were going to title the group, I would call it Carnivore Carb Cycling for bodybuilders.
Or even at the most animal-based.
Or animal-based.
Something like that.
Or hyper-carnivore.
Right.
Because he, even in the description and everywhere throughout the group, and then the arguments that are always being had in the group is essentially carnivore purists versus hyper-carnivore.
Hyper-carnivore is only 70% animal. Everything you can do whatever else you want outside of that.
Yes.
Okay, and you're still carnivore. Okay, sure. Which is technically true.
It's very irritating.
But it's not
and for me,
where a lot of people coming into the group are thinking.
Right. This is why I don't engage much in the group, because it's irritating for it to constantly be an argument.
It literally is every day. And
in my opinion, that's not helpful to anyone.
And it's
in fact, it breeds more confusion, and unfortunately, people are going to go to a group like that looking for help and assistance and information.
Right.
And they go into a group like that, and when all it is infighting, there's very little helpful information being shared.
Every post says something different, the opposite thing. And not that there isn't, there are people doing cool things, and it is a great place to go and see, hey, all of these people are doing some really cool things in their health and fitness, and they're using whatever their methodology is to do that.
Animal-based.
Right. it's the struggle that we see as coaches dealing with helping people get through confusion.
Yes.
And sort through the information is literally when you go in and you see one post that says you need carbs, another post that says you don't, another post that says this, another post that says, and
constantly contradicting.
And they're just, and then it's just all arguing. Like, how is someone who's new
going to
figure out
benefit?
What they're supposed to do there?
Right.
You know, who do they believe when you have two people who both say major contributor on their tag on their account?
Yep.
Right, and one is saying he's a major contributor. He posts all the time. He must know what he's talking about. And he's saying I take honey every time I work out. And then you got another person who's saying major contributor who says I haven't eaten carbs in 20 years. Like,
yeah.
What do I do? Help! So I try to inject things every once in a while here and there. I haven't had any kickback from anybody yet.
I'm sure.
Which I'm surprised. I'm very surprised.
That, yeah.
I was told by a couple of the people that are in there, they said, just be careful. Bart came in here and said, screw it after a couple months and left and never came back.
I could see that.
And I'm like, well, that's Bart. I mean, we could totally see Bart because Bart is also going to be the one who's going to say, you have no idea what you're effing talking about. This is what it is. Stop being stupid.
Yeah.
That's how he's going to approach things. And then it's going to get into a big whole thing. But yeah, so I've tried to just say my piece, and so far I haven't had anybody try to fight.
I tend to only
want to fight?
Comment. I'll either comment because there's people that I have now come to know and would consider friends or associates or colleagues or, in there. And so I like to, especially women in there that are competing, I love to just support them, right? Or I sometimes get tagged in things. And so if I'm tagged in something because somebody in the group knows that I have something to share when somebody has a question, then I'll go in and answer. And actually, that's the way I operate in a lot of the groups that I'm in.
Hold on. You know what? It didn't. I'm just looking that nobody's in on YouTube, and it's because my thumbnail's not there for some reason. That's weird. Anywho.
What?
It says 15 people watching, but it's not showing anybody watching there.
But we have people in your comments.
Yeah, but they've been there since the beginning. Sorry, little sidetrack.
I don't understand. Okay, so we have a question that is the perfect question to segue into what I was going to say, which is pay attention one thing at a time.
I can't.
You can read the question
I'm reading
in a minute.
The question. Oh, okay.
Y'all, it's hard living with an ADHD person. Like,
I'm not that
don't worry, I'll read it in a minute.
I'm just a little ADHD. I'm not a lot ADHD. It's just a little.
Okay. Okay, we're not going to go there. All right, so what I was going to say is it's interesting you brought up that group and you brought up carbs, right? Because that's what I was going to bring up as the thing I've been seeing. We just had a revelation, or I had a little rant in my group this week in my academy with clients. So I've had a question or a comment come up a couple of times from ladies in my group who are playing with reincorporating carbs. And along the same lines of, will I be kicked out? Or I'm not going to talk about this in the group setting. I'm just going to put it in my check-in because I don't want to trigger anyone, or because I know most people here are not doing this, or, is there a point at which I'm no longer going to be welcome in the group because my carbs have gotten too high, all of these kinds of things, right? And so I had to address it in the feedback video this week because I was like, essentially from day one of my academy, which is called the Keto Bikini Academy, I've always had at least one or two, at least a handful of members, clients, who are reincorporating carbs, who are bringing their overall carbs up or doing carb cycling, or we are doing things for them that is not keto or carnivore. It's not like at the level of carbs you would be eating if you're in a ketogenic diet.
Based on how you define that.
Right. So, whether they're getting up to 75, 80, 90, 100 grams, 150 grams of carbs a day, all of that, by the way, would still be considered low carb. In our low carb, in our carb-centric world, 150 grams or less of carbs is essentially kind of
That's
where
like
that
half. That's half of what the average person gets.
low carb level essentially kind of gets placed.
Or
And
less than
even I think Primal, Mark Sisson's Primal essentially sets it there at 150 or under. So it's absolutely still considered low carb, but regardless of what the levels are to be considered low carb or keto or carnivore, it doesn't really matter what the exact numbers are. The overall principles, and what I like to tell people is, I do not teach high carb, low fat diets. I do not encourage those diets. I do not teach traditional bodybuilding macros of, super high protein, super high carb, and very low fat. Nor do I encourage that. I do not encourage standard American diet levels of carbs, meaning 6 to 11 servings of grains every day, and whatever level, 5 to 7
250
fruits
to 400 grams of carbs a day.
Right, all of that. And I don't encourage or teach vegan or vegetarian. And so I do not have vegan and vegetarian clients. I do not have people eating 300 to 500 grams of carbs a day in my groups and under 50 grams of fat. But we are animal-based primarily. We are anywhere in the low carb realm. And that's who I serve, women in the low carb space at any level. And if you're wanting to eat fruits and vegetables or even grains, oh my gosh, if you even want to eat rice and potatoes and starchy carbs, and you're not going to be kicked out or ostracized out of my groups for that, because what we do is meet you where you are. So all that being said, that is ultimately what I see, and what I see in even the carnivore bodybuilding group. Unfortunately, the reason why there's so much contention in there is simply because they're capitalizing off the term carnivore, and because of all of the different definitions of what that means, it breeds this argumentative type of conversations.
Right. It's the tribe mentality.
But what you see, and why you see so many different people having different results in that group and other groups, is that there is no one size fits all of any style of diet. You can have two different people doing carnivore, and one very unhealthy and one absolutely optimized. And so optimizing within any way of eating, labeled diet, whatever you want to call it, is individual to the person.
That's the magic sauce.
And no two people are going to thrive eating the exact same things or doing things the exact same way.
Yeah.
So that being said, let's get to the question, which is the perfect question. Holly asks, to use fat as fuel versus carbs, what is the carb threshold, or is it different for each person? So let's break this down. First of all, we kind of already alluded to the fact that things are always going to be different for each person. You could pretty much say that across the board about anything. But let's get into her specific question. To use fat as fuel versus carbs. So let's set the stage. It's not simply about what is a person's carb threshold, because carb threshold in and of itself.
Well, that's where my brain is right
different
now, because I feel like I want to start on the threshold conversation.
We can talk about that. And then the specific question being, in order to use fat as fuel, in order to shift your body from using carbs for fuel to using fat for fuel.
Right. And I think
that's the crux of the question.
That's where the threshold comes into play. So the first thing I thought of when I read the threshold piece was there is no threshold because it's zero. There's no need for them in the first place.
So you're defining threshold.
So the threshold for, and this is where, how I'm interpreting the word and the question and things like that, right? So there's two ways you could talk about threshold here, I think. One is, what is the threshold for how much your body needs before it's too much? And the answer is 0. Because you don't need any exogenous carbs. You don't need to eat carbs, period. So on one side of the coin, the threshold is 0. You don't need them at all. On the other side of the coin, talking about fat versus carbs, if you are eating carbs, what is the amount of carbs that you would need to eat in order for your body to not process fat? Like how much before it turns off? And the fat piece, right?
I would probably take her question, and the way I would interpret her question would be, how low do you need to get your carbs to be able to burn fat?
Right, same thing, right? What is that point? Like, if I'm at 100, am I going to be burning fat or stopping my fat burn? If I'm at 50, and that's where it's going to be different for everybody. There's so many factors that go into that.
Yep.
Now remember, you're always going to be processing both.
Yes.
The question is priority. What are you doing? What type of carbs are you getting? There's a whole bunch of things that, when are you getting them? What are you eating them with? If I ate 100 grams of carbs and I just ate the carbs by itself, if I just ate a potato plain with no butter, that's going to be different as from a carb threshold perspective as if I ate a potato with sour cream and butter, because of the Randall cycle, because of eating fat and carbs at the same time is going to make that process differently.
And then if you put a steak with it,
that's a whole nother.
Now it changes the paradigm again, because now we're talking about putting protein in the mix.
So there's a lot of things that go into that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not a simple answer.
It's not a simple answer at all.
Yeah. So it is definitely different for each person, but it's also different based on meal timing, meal pairing, meal size,
activity,
overall
type of
intake
activity
in the day, activity
muscle
level.
mass.
Oh my gosh, so many.
Gut health. How much are you actually getting of what you're eating? There's all. It goes on and on and on. Stress.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Do you have chronically high cortisol? Your body's going to process things differently. You're more likely to store the fat from the carbs if you're chronically stressed.
Yes.
Because cortisol is already keeping your blood glucose high. So when you're eating it, you have less room in your blood to store anything. It's going to have to make it and turn it into fat, right? So there's a whole bunch of things that play into it.
Don't read yet. Damn, I had a thought and now I lost it because you distracted me. Shit, what was it?
Sweet potatoes.
Okay, we'll just read the question because I lost it. She says, yes, I've been eating an average 125 carbs and 70 fat. I started reading Bronson's stuff and I've thought about switching back to lower carbs again. However, I struggle to hit higher fat and do enjoy fruit and sweet potatoes. Okay, oh, I remembered what it was. I think the biggest impact or the biggest variable to consider when we're considering the impact of carbs and carb threshold is health status in terms of metabolic health, in terms of insulin resistance. Where are you on that spectrum? Because
obesity.
I love, and there was actually something somebody posted in the carnivore bodybuilding group where it was talking about, it was somebody talking about essentially fitness level, athletes versus, right? Like, so how much muscle you have, how athletic you are, how active you are, and what carbs do in the body for a person who is fit, essentially healthy and fit, versus somebody who is obese, insulin resistant, and how those carbs, literally how the carbs are being used in your body is different in one situation versus another. The wheels are turning.
I'm thinking about maybe rephrasing what you just said to help people understand it a little bit.
Yeah.
Or
even explain it further.
It's not I don't know if it's necessarily how it's being used that's different. It's the amount of extra work or the changes in the path that it goes, right? So your body has to process whatever you put in it. If you're healthy, that processing, that utilization of whatever you eat is going to be a lot more efficient, right? I'm going to eat it. My body's going to break it down. I'm going to use it. It's going to get applied where it needs to get applied. Done.
Yep.
Now,
for example,
with carbs versus...
when you have more muscle, for example, you can handle more carbs without the detrimental effects that you would have if you were over fat, under muscled, insulin resistant.
Right. And where I was going, like, there are impacts of everything. So if I'm for me right now, I'm in shape, everything's cool, I got a ton of muscle, I'm cardiovascularly fit, I don't have any excess body fat, I'm low inflammation, all that kind of stuff. If I eat carbs, my body will have a inflammatory response. But it isn't going to be so much that it impacts my overall health. Right now, if I keep doing it, and I'm consistent, and I eat French fries every day, and I eat ice cream every day, and then I do all of these things consistently over time, what happens is that inflammatory response becomes part of my homeostatic balance, because my body always expects it to be there, because I'm always doing something. It's like picking the scab. I'm always picking the scab. So what happens then is your body has to change how it's processing things and the path it sends stuff. So now, because you're inflamed, more fat gets stored. Because you're inflamed, you get more oxidative stress. Because you're inflamed, your hormones react differently. So your body is just responding to what you're giving it on a consistent basis. And when you're giving it something that causes an inflammatory response, it changes the reaction to what you're putting in. So it's still processing it the same, but it's because you're doing more of it consistently that it now changes the pathway that it has to go through and the things your body has to do to make that processing happen. If that makes sense. Kind of, sort of.
You could sum it up by saying the healthier you are and the fitter you are, the more resilient your body is against any stressor. So you can handle higher allostatic load.
That's a whole nother way of saying it. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So the stress you're placing on your body can handle it, and it actually makes your body better, like training, for example, right? Exercise. If you are unhealthy, your response to exercise on the short term, acute, is going to feel a lot more intrusive.
Yes.
Right? You're going to have more inflammation. You're going to have more to recover from. You're going to have more soreness. You're going to have more joint pain at first until you start overcoming that and getting healthier. And then the healthier and healthier you become, the less wear and tear on your body from that stressor, for example.
Right.
So all of that. Okay.
So she made a comment. This is the crux, and this is what I wanted. I was thinking, it's funny because I had in my head that I wanted to talk about this today.
Which one are you?
The last one.
Oh, the last one. Okay. So a little more detail. She gave us some body composition for where she's at right now for muscle mass and body fat percentage. And then she says, I like lifting heavy and building muscle, so wasn't sure if my progress would improve to cut carbs lower. Okay. So
carbs have absolutely nothing to do with your ability to build muscle.
Right. She's wondering if she'll make better progress cutting her carbs. That's what she's asking.
My progress would improve to cut carbs lower. It won't. It shouldn't make any difference at all. So muscle building is about protein, stimulus, and recovery. Those are the three things you need. So you need enough protein to build muscle, which we were going to talk about next week because there's a new study that came out that was super cool.
Okay, we'll talk about protein next week.
And you need stimulus. You need to tell your muscles to grow. And then you need to rest and give them time to actually do the growing. So those three things together, nothing in there says anything about carbs or fat.
The only way I would say that the only way that plays in is that you need to be consuming enough fuel to be able to work hard in your training, which is the stimulus, is one of the stimulus.
Right.
So protein by itself is a stimulus. Just eating enough protein in each meal
muscle protein synthesis
can drive some stimulus. And then also your training is driving the stimulus. If your training is subpar because you are depleting your body or diminishing your body,
you're tired in your
fuel,
workouts and you can't work out as hard as you need to.
So like you're on a diet, like at the end of a prep, going into my show is when my workouts are the worst. I'm just doing little pump workouts because I just don't have as much in the tank because my overall intake is so low. I'm not getting a lot of fuel. So you need to have enough fuel to be able to push hard in your workouts and create that stimulus to grow. So the fact that she also mentioned, she said, I need to lose another 8 pounds, tells me you're in a deficit. You're trying to keep your fuel at a certain level so that a low enough level, dieting, essentially, to make your body take body fat and use that for fuel, right? So muscle building and fat loss are a little counterintuitive. Can you get body recomp and do them at the same time? Yes. But is it the optimal way to put on the most amount of muscle or to lose the most amount of body fat? No.
See, we disagree on this.
We do.
This is definitely something we disagree on. There's not a lot that we disagree on, but this is definitely something we disagree on.
If I'm talking about optimal, not in terms of health, I'm talking about optimal in terms of you want to lose the most possible fat you can lose in the quickest time. Cutting back on your fuel is going to be the best way to do that.
Sure.
But you're not going to build the most amount of muscle while you're doing that. If you want to put on the most amount of muscle that you can physically achieve, you're not going to be able to do that while you're also trying to lose the most amount of fat that you can at the same time. If you have one particular goal at a time, you're going to achieve that goal better focusing on that one goal. You still want to be contrary, don't you?
A little bit.
Just for the sake of being contrary.
Because the engineer in me, based on what I've seen, the engineer in me says there is now, it's not an easy point to find, and it's not something that most people need to be worried about on either side. Like, this is not a conversation that most people even need to be worried about.
Right.
For 99 out of 100 people watching this, you just need to worry about not overeating so you gain fat and not undereating so you can build muscle. That's all you got to worry about. Just eat adequate nutrition and you'll be fine. For those who are talking about this extreme, we're talking about the most fat loss, the most muscle building. Then yes, I think there is a tipping point between the two goals that could be found where both are optimal. But that window has got to be so small where what's the point of even bother trying to find it, right? So yeah, I think in reality, to be realistic, if you have a purely muscle building goal, then you want to do everything you can to optimize that, which means you're not going to be worried about body composition from a fat gain perspective. You may gain some fat. That, again, a lot like carbs, I don't think, in my experience, that you have to gain fat in order to build muscle.
I agree with that.
But a lot of people do because it's easier to just focus on the muscle building and not worry about if I'm getting more energy than I need.
But I'm not arguing that you need to bulk in order to gain muscle.
And that's that's the perception that a lot of people have about gaining muscle.
And I also am not arguing that you should be in a severe deficit so that you can lose fat really fast or
I can barely get out of bed because I'm
But I will also say that if you insist upon doing both at the same time, you're not going to maximize your muscle gain being in a deficit for fat loss because you're striving for weight loss on the scale or fat loss. So if you're striving for losing another 10 pounds, it's unlikely to the average person or to the person who is in that middle range where Holly is. Holly's at, she said 26% body fat. People who are already in a healthy range of body fat, who are seeking to lose more body fat, and this is something she mentioned here.
Yep.
She said, I've been able to maintain my muscle for the last 15 months while losing 60 pounds.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep.
That's the goal in a fat loss phase, is to not lose muscle. But notice, she didn't say, I've been able to gain 5 pounds of muscle while I lost 60 pounds over the last 15 months. Essentially, when you're focused mostly on fat loss, meaning you're essentially under eating fuel so that your body has to use its own fuel for energy, you're not maximizing muscle gains. You're leaving muscle gains on the table if you're already in a healthy range of fat and muscle. If you are brand new to strength training and you are 40, 50% body fat, maybe even 30, 35% body fat, you can gain muscle while also losing fat optimally, I would say. But for my ladies like Holly in the mid 20% body fat, you've already been training. I happen to know that Holly's been training for many years. Muscle gains, and you're a woman over 40, muscle gains are already going to be hard enough to come by that chasing fat loss and being in a deficit, you're essentially, for the most part, the best you're going to do is maintain your muscle, which is great in a fat loss phase, but it's not the way to most optimally build muscle. And I will die on that hill.
I don't want to take the rest of the time to talk about this because I have some thoughts. But, I'm curious. I'm wondering what that sets up from a paradigm of thought in. We're saying that muscle building is dependent on fuel availability, right? So you're saying that because the workouts won't be as intense if you're in a deficit, that you won't be able to build as much?
Well, think about it like this. At maintenance, you're eating enough to sustain your body the way it is, right?
Okay. You're maintaining homeostasis. You're maintaining a balance.
Right? Essentially, all of your body's functions are going to be better because you are well fueled.
Okay.
You're not asking your body to perform with less.
Right. So, but I look at it this way. So if I have, let's say I have, we're talking about a car. Let's say we're talking about a car. If I have a gas tank in my car that's 50 gallons, and then I have a bucket in my back seat that's 50 gallons, I got 100 gallons total.
Okay.
If I only need, let's say, 50 gallons to fuel a workout or to fuel my exercise or activities, it doesn't matter where that 50 gallons comes from. If I never put gas in my tank and I only put gas in the bucket there or whatever I have on my back seat, I will still always have enough fuel.
Okay.
To energize and do the work that I need to do to get the stimulus to build the muscle. So whether I'm in a fuel deficit or not, if I have body fat, that is a source of energy as much as if I'm eating.
Yes.
So there should be zero effect on my ability to apply stimulus in my exercise.
Okay, so.
Right. So being in a deficit doesn't mean by definition that you're not able to fuel the exercise unless you're lean. Now, if we're talking about lean people,
that is literally what I just said.
Well, but I think
if you are already in a healthy level of body fat, you're not over fat. It would be different. And this is why I said if a person is 30, a woman is 30, 35, 40, 50% body fat, They have a lot more body fat that they can
So
tap
you said
into.
26.
So
you're
I'm saying
saying
she's already in a healthy range. So it's going to be, essentially, you're at the tipping point where being in a deficit is no longer optimal to your body, because your body is now more sensitive. You're already healthy. You're already in a place, you're in a place that's healthy to maintain, fat-wise. You may not think that because
that's the kicker.
look,
That's the kicker.
I get it, okay? Look, when I'm in an off season, my body is happy as a clam. When I'm cutting for a show, there gets to be a point where, first of all, it's going to be much more difficult to lose body fat because my body's like, hey, hello, we're healthy. We don't need to do this.
And I think
And it's no longer optimal.
right. So there's a point at your body composition where, did she say she was 26%?
Yeah.
So I like how you use the term tipping point.
And she's been in a deficit for 15 months and has lost 60 pounds.
Well, I like how you said tipping point, because there is that point where, from what I was just saying and what you said earlier, is when you get to the point where you have to work the deficit in order to lose the body fat, that's where you start realizing, okay, wait a second, my body is at a point now where I have to eat it to use it.
Yes.
If you're at the point where you can't optimize your fuel, the access to fuel, unless you're eating the fuel, that's when you know you're at a leanness that is your bottom limit. Right? Because if you go beyond that, now you're getting into being super lean, and you have to, in many cases, increase the fat intake that you're getting because you have to make up for what your body can't use.
Yes.
Right? So if you're at a point,
it's not that your body can't use it. It's that you are now asking it to do more than, I mean, you were doing that the whole time. Whenever you're in a deficit, you're asking your body to overcome something, to do something different, to tap into the fat and pull it out of its stores. Your body never wants to do that because it always wants to maintain homeostasis. That doesn't mean that it's healthy to stay 50 pounds over fat, right?
Well,
but this is why a person with more body fat is more capable of recomp than a person with less body fat.
Yes, and when you're at this tipping point, this is where, like you're asking, and this is where you're leading. I guess I'm assuming you've kind of led her down this path. Is okay. I'm at the point where my fat loss is at the lower limit of where healthy is, where I'm noticing I'm having to work harder to lose the fat. That's where you then say, okay, what's the other side of the equation? Now it's time to focus on building muscle, because now we're not talking about fat pounds. We're talking about a ratio of fat to muscle.
Yes.
So now we're saying, okay, I've lost a ton of body fat. I've gotten down to a limit that is healthy, or a level that is healthy. It's getting really hard to get to the next level of fat loss. Let's focus on building muscle so we can change the ratio. Now, as I build muscle, I'm less focused on trying to lose fat. I'm going to focus on building muscle. As you build the muscle, guess what's going to happen? You're going to notice, number one, that you look like you've lost a lot more fat. You're going to notice that actually fat does start coming off a little bit more, because now you have more metabolically active tissue, and you're going to see some of that fat come off as well. So yeah, it's when do you get to that tipping point? I really like that phrase, that tipping point of focusing, changing your focus from fat loss to
and
muscle
literally
building.
that she just said yes, and partly why I'm asking, as I'm getting ready to move into the muscle gain focus instead of fat loss.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and so getting back to her original question, it doesn't, like he said, it doesn't have to do with the carbs versus the fat. It has to do with your overall intake. So you've been in this deficit, your fuel has been lower than your protein, I imagine. So now that you've lost all of this, if we're shifting into muscle gain, this is where I would go into a reverse diet. This is where I would start pulling up your fuel. And in your case, I still would pull up fats and not pull up carbs from there. Because in my opinion, you're on the low end of healthy amount of dietary fat in your diet for optimal health purposes. I like to see, getting that fat up to 80, 90, 100 grams before I would keep, bumping up your carbs. Because your carbs are already, well over 100. I would say focus on bringing the fats up to optimize health, to bring yourself back up to find your maintenance, essentially.
Always prioritize protein and fat over carbs. Always.
Yeah, and you can, that's not to say you have to stop fat loss, right? Like, it is all, and this is what I always say to my ladies in the academy, it's all up to you. You get to make the decision, do I want to keep going with fat loss? Do I want to get that last 8 pounds off before I shift my focus? But just the message I want to get across here is, don't be delusional thinking that you can do something with your fat or your carbs or something within still being in an overall deficit, energy deficit for fat loss to now optimize for muscle gains while you continue to seek fat loss at the lower level of body fat. It's not about tweaking something in your food choice or in your macros while you keep your overall energy in a deficit. It's not going to optimize for muscle within that situation that you're in. Until you bring your fuel up, you're going to continue to hope to preserve the muscle that you do have while you continue to lose body fat. It is a opposing goal at this point.
Hope that makes sense. We
I hope so
went
too. I know.
all over the place. Basically,
but that was a great
whatever your
question.
goal is where you should be focused.
Right. Optimize
for that goal. Right. Yep. Whatever's possible, what are you trying to do and how complicated are you making it?
And I'll drop the gem that blew some minds in the academy, which is even if you still have fat to lose, especially that last 5 to 10 pounds, if you do go to maintenance, find your maintenance, and only focus on building muscle, and you put on 5 pounds of muscle over the next 6 months to a year, you will lose body fat at the same time without needing to be in a deficit, without needing to cut back on your fuel, without needing to pursue fat loss. So with muscle gain, you can also achieve fat loss. With fat loss as the focus, it's very unlikely you're also going to achieve muscle gain. So if you're going to choose one goal,
always build muscle.
Muscle is the goal to focus on.
Always build muscle. Muscle should be the goal.
And my
period, the goal.
Like, I'm seriously thinking about just putting out a challenge that's like a year-long challenge for
how
women
much muscle can you
committing to not going on a diet for a year.
Oh my God.
Be at maintenance, focus on muscle gain, and you will be amazed at how your body transforms without the scale changing. And your whole body will look different.
I can't even express how
awesome. I should do that as a challenge.
That would be oh God.
But getting women to commit to not going on a diet for a year, I would have like
no diets, no challenges, no fasting, just eat your face off and lift some fucking heavy weight for a year.
And recover.
And get sleep. And take the days off and stop doing 2 workouts a day and stop fasting for 48 hours. Stop that crap.
Hey,
it's not helping you.
She's in.
It's not helping you.
Yes. Is that Kristen? Kiki? I know that last name, so I think that's Kristen. Come on, girlfriend, let's do it. And I do have ladies in the academy who are committed to this. So I would have I'd have some takers that are already in the academy. Yeah. So, but maybe I'll put the feelers out to do a year-long.
You have to do something. Yeah, have to figure something out.
Anti-diet challenge.
The anti-diet challenge.
Let's do it.
Stop the insanity.
Susan Power?
Powder, something like that.
All right, fam.
All right, we've been on for 1 hour and 15. It's time to go. I have to pee. Not that you all need to know that. That coffee. Woo! Every time.
Every time.
See you guys next week. Next week, we're talking about muscle.
Protein or whatever.
Protein,
What
that
was
study.
the study.
Eat more protein. Don't be afraid of it.
Yes.
Eat all the protein.
All the protein, which is what I'm about to
We've
go
talked
do.
about it.
Breakfast.
You are? See you guys.